My wedding day was everything I'd dreamed it would be. Our friends and family watched with tears and smiles as we promised to love each other forever. But planning the wedding hadn't been all smooth sailing. Sometimes, while we were discussing things like table settings and guest lists, I'd notice my soon-to-be husband getting quiet. His eyes would become distant, like he was seeing something from long ago that troubled him. I could tell something was weighing on him, but I didn't push. He was a private person, and I loved that about him, even with all his complexities. Instead, I focused on our love and the excitement of starting our new life together. During all the wedding preparations, I grew really close to my mother-in-law. She wasn't just my fiancé's mom, she became like a second mother to me. She had this amazing way of understanding people, especially her son. When he'd get quiet and withdrawn, which happened more often as the wedding got closer, she always knew exactly what to do or say. One afternoon, we were looking through old family photos for our wedding slideshow when she started sharing stories about my future husband as a little boy. She talked about his mischievous smile and endless energy, but also about his quiet moments. While she smiled telling these stories, I could see a hint of sadness in her eyes, like she was carrying some old worry. These afternoons with her helped me understand the deep bond between mother and son, and how some old hurt had shaped the man I was going to marry. She taught me so much about being there for him without pushing too hard, always finding that perfect balance between giving him space and staying close. She became my go-to person for everything, especially when it came to choosing gifts for him. Our shopping trips became our special tradition that made me feel more and more like part of the family. A few weeks before the wedding, after a long day of finalizing wedding details, she invited me over for tea. That's when she gave me something that made me realize just how much she'd accepted me into their family. From an old wooden box, she pulled out a small velvet case with a beautiful antique ring inside. It had belonged to my future husband's great-grandmother. The band was thin from years of wear, but the stones still sparkled beautifully. As she placed it in my hand, she told me it wasn't just a family treasure. It was their way of saying they trusted me and welcomed me into their family. She explained how, like the ring, their family had weathered many storms but stayed strong. I couldn't hold back my tears as I slipped the ring on my finger. It felt like more than just jewelry. It was like a shield made of all the love and strength of the women who'd worn it before me. Looking at my mother-in-law, I could see she was just as emotional as I was. "Thank you," I managed to say through my tears. "I promise to honor the trust you've placed in me." She just smiled warmly and said, "I know you will, my dear. You already have." The morning of our wedding, I woke up to a beautiful sunrise painting the sky pink and orange. The butterflies in my stomach made me smile. Today I was marrying the love of my life. Our venue was perfect, right on the edge of a gorgeous garden where every flower seemed to be blooming just for us. While getting ready, I could hear everyone bustling around, the clinking of dishes, people arranging flowers, and our wedding planner giving directions in a gentle voice. The ceremony area took my breath away. They'd set it up under this massive oak tree, with a simple wooden arch covered in white and pink roses, and some ivy and lavender woven through it. The chairs were set up in a curve, each one decorated with a small bunch of flowers tied with ribbons that danced in the breeze. As guests started arriving in their colorful outfits, their happy chatter mixed with the music we'd spent nights choosing together. Each song held a special memory for us, and now they were playing for everyone to hear. When it was time, my dad walked me down the hidden garden path to the arch. The moment I saw my husband-to-be waiting there, my heart skipped a beat. He looked so handsome in his suit, and the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the world, made me fall in love all over again. Walking down that aisle felt both like forever and just a second. Everyone was watching, but all I could see was him. When I reached him and he took my hand, that simple touch sent warmth through my whole body. We'd written our own vows, and his voice was strong but full of emotion as he spoke. I cried happy tears through mine, and we even made everyone laugh with little stories about our life together. The kiss after we were pronounced married was perfect, sweet and full of promise, while our guests cheered and clapped. The reception was a whirlwind of dancing, eating, and heartfelt speeches. During our first dance, it felt like the world disappeared. It was just us, the music, and our love. The food was amazing, and our cake, though simple, was exactly what we wanted. As day turned to night, the garden lit up with soft golden lights that made everything feel magical. But as the last guests left and we headed to our room, something changed. The happy bubble we'd been in all day started to feel heavy with something unsaid. My husband, who'd been so confident and happy all day, suddenly seemed nervous, almost afraid. I'd always known there were parts of his past he kept to himself, dark things he wasn't ready to share. I'd never pushed him about it, knowing some hurts run too deep to talk about. Then came the knock at our door. It was my mother-in-law. The sight of her at our door on our wedding night was definitely not what I'd expected. My husband whispered something to her, his voice shaking in a way I'd never heard before. "Mom, I can't. Can you come in?" They stepped into our room, and suddenly our cozy little haven felt cramped. The air felt thick, like right before a storm. My mother-in-law looked at me with such sympathy that my heart started racing. Whatever was happening, this wasn't just some random interruption. This was something important. She looked between us, clearly struggling with what to say next. "There's something about your husband's past that you need to know," she finally said, her voice gentle but serious. "Something he's found hard to tell you himself." She turned to her son with wide eyes. "Wait, you haven't told her?" When he shook his head, she sighed. "Go ahead. The poor thing must think we're acting so strange." My husband looked deep into my eyes, took a deep breath, and started to share his story. "When I was 5, my husband began, his voice barely above a whisper, something happened that changed everything. A burglar broke into our house through my bedroom window. That night, in the darkness, my whole world shifted. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I was just frozen there, terrified. Even after they fixed the window and cleaned up the broken glass, the fear stayed with me." He explained how his bedroom, which should have been a safe place, became like a battlefield. Every shadow made him jump, and sleep became almost impossible. But his mom became his guardian angel. Night after night, she sat by his bed, telling him stories about brave heroes who faced their fears and won. These weren't just bedtime stories. They were his lifeline back to feeling normal and safe. As I listened to him share this deep hurt he'd carried for so long, my heart ached. This strong, wonderful man I'd married had been carrying such a heavy burden, and now he was finally sharing it with me. My hands were shaking a little, not from fear but from wanting so badly to take away his pain. What really got to me was when he looked at me with such vulnerability and asked, "So how can I help you?" Even in this moment, when he was the one hurting, he was still trying to take care of me. "It's not about how you can help me," I told him softly, taking his hand. "It's about how I can help you." My mother-in-law then explained something that made everything click. "When he's anxious or overwhelmed, especially at night, being held close helps calm him down," she said. "Let him rest his head on your heart. It's something that's soothed him since he was little." She explained that while he didn't need this comfort all the time anymore, really stressful situations could still trigger his anxiety. "Patience and physical comfort are what help him find peace," she added. Without hesitation, I opened my arms to him. He paused for a moment, then let me hold him, laying his head on my chest. I could feel how tense he was at first, but as we stayed like that, his breathing slowly matched my heartbeat, and I felt him start to relax. Our wedding celebrations had been just hours ago, but this quiet moment felt even more meaningful. Every beat of my heart seemed to tell him he was safe, that he wasn't alone anymore. As he drifted off to sleep, I could feel the weight of his worries lifting. My mother-in-law watched us with tears in her eyes before quietly leaving the room. Her face showed such relief, a mother seeing her son finally at peace. That night changed everything, but not in the way you might think. Instead of weakening our bond, his honesty made it stronger. We weren't just husband and wife anymore, we were partners in healing, in understanding, in facing life's challenges together. As I lay awake watching the sunrise, I thought about our journey ahead. Sure, it would take patience and understanding to help him heal from something I'd never experienced myself. But I was ready. Ready to be his safe place, his partner, his comfort in the dark times. Our wedding night might not have been what most people dream of, but it was perfect in its own way. It showed us that real love isn't just about sharing the happy times. It's about being there in the hard moments too. It's about trusting someone enough to show them your deepest fears and having them respond with nothing but love. That night taught us that together, we're stronger. That love isn't just candlelight and roses. Sometimes it's holding someone while they face their demons. And you know what? That kind of love, the kind that heals and protects and understands, that's the most beautiful kind of all. Looking back now, I wouldn't change a thing about our wedding night. Because that night didn't just start our marriage, it started something deeper. A partnership built on complete trust and understanding. And every night since then, when I hold him close, I'm reminded that this is what real love looks like. Not perfect, but perfectly right for us.